This is Ace the Yogi, and you're listening to the Sacred Koi podcast, where ancestral wisdom meets embodied healing. In this episode, Unlearning the Curse of Assimilation, we explore how healing begins when we stop shrinking ourselves to fit into a system that was never made for us. When I say curse, I'm not speaking of some superstition, but of the deep generational patterns that disconnect us from our roots. Assimilation often asks us to trade ancestral wisdom, cultural rhythm, and spiritual intuition for acceptance or survival. But that exchange comes at a very heavy cost. This conversation is about breaking that cycle, about unlearning the internalized beliefs that tell us rest is lazy, that mindfulness is a white practice, or that healing must look a certain way. And it's about remembering who we were before colonization interrupted our connection to spirit. I'm deeply honored to welcome today's guest, Karim Brown. Karim is a proud Boricua and longtime Lehigh Valley resident with over 25 years of experience in education, family engagement, and trauma-informed care. She is a bilingual parent liaison, a community connector, and an advocate for intentional, heart-centered living. Whether she's supporting families or facilitating restorative spaces, Karim creates room for joy, reflection, and rootedness. Today, we'll explore what it really means to reclaim mindfulness, resist cultural erasure, and return to the wisdom that's always lived in our bodies, through our breath, and in our bloodlines. Let's dive in.
All right. Hello. Thank you so much for that introduction. I feel very big.
You are. You're a giant. Take up space, please.
I'm only 4'11", but okay.
That's just your physical body.
Yes.
But spiritually, you are definitely a giant in this
Thank
space.
you.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Me and you have known each other for a little bit, all right? And I know that you actually weren't born here in the U.S. mainland. You were born in Puerto Rico, correct?
Yes.
Right? And you moved here to the mainland when you were about 7?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm wondering, what do you remember about those first few years of transitioning here from Puerto Rico?
So my mother moved us when I was 7 years old from Puerto Rico to Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is in the middle of Pennsylvania, nowhere land. I was born in Puerto Rico. All my family was there. And my mother moved us because financially it was the best situation that she can get into. And she had a friend who lived in Altoona. So we took a flight, packed up all our bags, myself and my sister and her, and we landed in Pittsburgh airport with like 6 feet of snow.
Wow.
And we were like, what is this white, cold stuff?
So this was the first time you had ever experienced
First time.
snow. Okay.
So we get picked up, we get driven to Altoona, and we're staying with my mom's friends probably for like about 6 months before my mom was able to find her first apartment. And she had to apply for social services and welfare, and we were on Section 8. But I just remember from second grade all the way through high school, I was the only Latina in town.
Wow.
So it was, definitely feeling my way around this white community that did not look like me or sound like me or anything like that. So my mom and I and my sister learning the language. As you're younger, it's easier for you to learn a different language. So I have no accent, but my mom has a heavy accent. And so I was her interpreter and her translator. She's fluent now, but very, very heavy accent. But Altoona had a large Ku Klux Klan population, and the Grand Wizard also lived in our area. So we got to see that kind of stuff. I gravitated to the African American side of town, and my best friend Alicia at the time, we were born on the same day, same year, and we were friends through high school. and her family became like my surrogate family. So I was always hanging out with them and her uncles and her grandparents and just doing things with them. And they made me feel welcomed and safe outside of my mom and myself. My sister ended up coming back to Puerto Rico to live with her father because she couldn't stand the States.
Wow.
So it was just me and my mom this whole time that we've been in the States since 1984.
Oh my goodness. So something that I hear a lot among those who have migrated here to the US or mainland US is they're oftentimes asked to give up their native language in order to speak English or in order to not have an accent. Did you ever have any pressures to do that?
I never felt like I needed to not speak my language because there was no one in school that spoke Spanish. So I had to just speak English. But when I would get home, it was all Spanish. So I never got away from speaking Spanish at home or listening to Spanish music or even writing in Spanish. Like I kept all of that. Even when I went to college, like I took Spanish classes so that I could keep up with my writing and my learning and all that kind of stuff. But I never felt like I couldn't speak my language because of the fact that no one else was there to say you couldn't speak it.
Gotcha. Okay. Me and you have had many conversations around mindfulness and decolonization. For my listeners, how did you begin to shift your perspective around mindfulness from something Western or white to something deeply ancestral and culturally respondent?
And I thought about that, and I go back to probably 10 years ago, where myself and my husband decided that we wanted to be vegetarians because we had watched a documentary that was talking about how the animals were impacted by the industry, the meat industry and all that, and how the meat was causing a lot of health issues. And we went from eating meat one day to the next day cold turkey, not eating any meat.
Straight cold turkey.
Straight cold turkey. Not knowing how we were going to be eating vegetarian food because we didn't know anyone who was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So from that point is where I really started to even, because I had to research what is vegetarianism, like what kind of foods, what am I supposed to get into? And that kind of like led me to a different path of like mindfulness. What does that mean? Sentient beings and all that. So I started gravitating towards understanding what yoga was, what mindfulness was. Like I had heard about it and I've seen other people do it, watched TV and seen things on TV, but like myself never really did it. We started like a yoga class at Easton. Dan did like a 30-day yoga class at the Easton Yoga Center. I did yoga like at the YMCA. So we kind of started incorporating some of those things here and there. But the mindfulness really started for me, I would say, probably right around COVID, where we were home and I was trying to figure out how to de-stress and how to deal with everyday life and even trauma or any of those things that, you know, had happened to me. Because I also started with therapy because of some things that were happening at work that I needed to see a therapist and talk through those things. So that kind of brought me into the world of mindfulness. And I had always, myself and Dan have always gravitated towards the Buddhist philosophy. I learned all the religions when I was younger. I was raised Catholic. And then I went to a Baptist church while I was in Altoona with Dan and my best friend, Alicia, and her family. But then I learned other religions. And what really felt safe and comfortable for me was the Buddhist philosophy. So I still to this day, I have Buddhist stuff all over the house. And just at the end of the day, like for me, just being present every day and looking at life one day at a time. And also having my dog really brought me into nature because I was walking her every morning and being in nature and listening to the birds and being present and praying and all those kinds of things. So I've really, really felt the most comfortable probably since COVID.
Wow. So that's an incredible journey. You said started about 10 years ago with you and your husband switching to veganism. Did any part of adapting this new lifestyle strike you as being difficult, because in the society that we live in, these things are oftentimes advertised to us as the skinny white women doing yoga and like a hot yoga studio or preparing, vegetarian or vegan dishes for their family. Was there any like preconceived notions around adapting this new lifestyle for you?
Definitely. We always were raised to be eating meat. Even in the Puerto Rican culture, like we're eating pig's feet. I remember my grandma's pig's feet. They were delicious back then, but I don't eat that no more. But it was hard at first because there was not a lot of products that were available to us, and I didn't know how to utilize certain products like soy and some of the meat products that were coming out. Impossible Meats was one of the first ones that was coming out when we started becoming vegetarian. And I still wanted to eat my Puerto Rican food. And I had kids in the house. I need to still feed them. And they want to have chicken. So I would still give them their meat products. But I would then make an alternative for myself and my husband with vegetables and soy and whatever else I could find, and researching recipes online while still sticking with my Puerto Rican heritage. So I'm still making my rice, my beans. I'm just not putting meat in the beans. I'm making spaghetti. I'm just utilizing a soy-based like burger option. So I'm still making those things. And even now, 2025, like there's so many different options out there that we can use to make food. We just had a cookout. We had our vegetarian burgers and hot dogs. Everybody else had hamburgers and hot dogs. And just different things that I can do. And even going to like the Puerto Rican and Dominican restaurants. When we first started, because we work in Allentown, we would go to like a Puerto Rican spot that we always go to. And then we would go and be like, oh, I'll have the rice and beans. They're like, oh, what kind of meat you want? No, I don't want meat. I want either fish or just don't give me anything. And they would look at us like we had three heads. Because they're like, you don't want meat? And they would actually say it. You don't want meat for the longest time. Probably like first 3 years. You don't want meat. But since we were going to the same places, we're like, oh yeah, that's right. You guys don't eat meat.
Oh, okay. So they started to remember. That's good.
But if you go to one of our spots, it's like you ask for a salad and it's a little just regular iceberg with a slice of tomato. No, I want a full salad, like everything in it. So that some of our cultural places like haven't caught up to having options available for people who are either vegan or vegetarian. So you have to create your own while you're there.
Do you ever feel like you're missing out on your culture because of that?
No, because I'm still making all the same stuff that I was making before. And even when I look for recipes for things that I still love. So even oatmeal, like avena. We love avena. So I have to use my almond milk instead of regular milk. Even little things like that where I had to find just different ways of making it while still eating the foods that I love with the flavors that I love.
That takes a lot of extra planning to do.
And it's more expensive.
It's
more expensive, man.
That's a whole other episode talking about why it's so expensive to be healthy in our country. Thank you so much for that enlightenment. Resmaa Menakem explains in his best-selling book, My Grandmother's Hands, and this is a quote, "Many times trauma in a person decontextualized over time can look like personality. Trauma in a family decontextualized over time can look like family traits. And trauma decontextualized in a people over time can look like culture. And it takes time to slow it down so you can begin to discern what's what." What are some practices or values you personally had to unlearn in order to reconnect with your roots and reclaim a more intentional way of living?
I had to actually, I think one of the biggest things, which I'm still working through, is not caring about what anybody else thinks. As long as I'm good. Like I'm selfish in my care of myself before everybody else, even my family. I'm first.
Good.
And then everybody else falls under that. Because if I'm not well, I can't be well for anybody else. Yep. And I can't help anybody else. They talk about when you're on the plane, the stewardess says, if, the oxygen mask comes down, yep, put it on yourself first and then help everybody else. That's, yep, exactly how I live my life. Yeah. And for some people it'd be like, well, that's selfish. No, that's healthy. We have to unlearn that, because many times, especially in the Latino community, women take care of everything. And that was a weight that I had to take off, but I didn't know I had the weight. Erykah Badu talks about bag lady. Bag lady. Yeah. And I had to let go of the bag. I couldn't just take a rock out. Yeah. I had to let go of the freaking bag. But that took time with mindfulness, with yoga, with talking to other like-minded people. How are they dealing with their trauma, their childhood experiences? So I had to make sure that I was okay in order for me to move forward and learn what I needed to learn. But I also believe that your path is already written. Many times, most of us think that we're going to take the alleyway, we're going to take the side street, we're going to go under the train, we're going to take a plane. At the end of the day, you're going to be at the same path. Yeah. You're just making it struggle. Yeah. But we don't realize that when we're doing it. No one else is telling you, no, you're making it hard. And life on life's terms, I call it lifing. Like, life is going to be what it's going to be. But at the end of the day, everything that has made me who I am today, all my experiences, good, bad, ugly, the people that I have come across, the jobs that I've had, the relationships that I had, the relationships I lost, all of it has made me who I am. And I would never change that for anything. Because then I wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't have the wisdom and understanding of what that was going to create for me going forward, and what I can give others as well. You mentioned the pressure that can come from your own internal culture around that healthy selfishness. Do you, or have you experienced any shame attached to being selfish? Yeah, I can say that my mother is one person who she's never said it, but I can tell by her actions, or lack of actions, that how dare I think of me and my family first before her. And you're supposed to be this way. You're supposed to take care of your mom. You're supposed to listen to me, and you don't question what I do or what I say, you just do. And we've had to have many dialogues where it's like, I'm fixing my side of the street. Unfortunately, the elders who have not been able to have that provided to them to understand that they could fix some of the things that were hurtful for them, they're just going through the emotions of what they've learned. And they haven't been able to unlearn that. So I can't fault her to a point. I can't fault her because no one has ever provided her a different way of being or learning or understanding. She's just stuck. And I have to accept her for who that is, but I'm not going to allow anyone to stop me and to cause me to question myself or to feel smaller, because I'm not, regardless of who you are. Ooh. I love all of that, all the messaging in there. There's so many different questions and tangents that I can go in and just that, but I want to stay on track and make sure that this doesn't turn into a 3-hour episode, because it definitely could between me and you. I'm wondering then, how can mindfulness serve as a form of resistance against certain systems that devalue our rest and community care? I think that mindfulness can be many things, right? So when I talk to somebody about being mindful or meditating, that's too hard. I can't. Yeah, I get that a lot. I can't meditate for more than 10 seconds because I start thinking about this and I start thinking about that. Yeah, the monkey mind. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, meditation doesn't necessarily have to be you're quiet and your mind is quiet for 30 minutes at a time. Right. It takes time. It's practice. Yep. The best teachers of mindfulness and meditation took them years to get to where they're at.
Absolutely.
It could just simply be where you are where your feet are at. You're touching ground, and you're just allowing yourself to just be. And then you grow from that. Or meditation or mindfulness could be you're watching the birds in the sky, and that's all you're doing. So being able to not get pulled into the societal norms and what society tells us we're supposed to be or how we're supposed to act, and also gravitate towards people who are like-minded, but not to the point where they're yes people, because you want to grow, right? You don't want everybody to be exactly the same thinking and mindset, because that's not where your growth is. You do want to have a little bit of differences and understanding of things, so that you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, people who can
or that makes me feel uncomfortable. Oh, why does that make me
Why?
feel uncomfortable? What's bothering me about that?
Yeah.
And to basically internalize that and start talking to yourself or others, be like, that bothered me because XYZ. Oh, it's because I didn't work on that. Or it made me feel uncomfortable because of my past or my experiences that I had. So I go back to saying I had to stop giving an F about what anybody else thinks and just being who I am, and professionally in the professional world, of course.
Cock off.
And in my personal life, be like, all right, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to step away for a second. And they don't need to know that. You don't have to tell everybody everything. That's one of my character defects, is that I share too much. And I have to also work on that. It's like, I don't have to tell you that you're annoying as F. I'm just going to walk away for a second. I got to go get a drink and just get yourself out of that situation. And that could be in the world, professionally, when you're out in the world, when you're at work,
a lot of times.
Things are just like, you just know in your heart, this is not right.
Yeah.
Can I do something about it? Is it my responsibility to do something about it? And if I walk away, whatever action I did, do I feel good about what I did at the end of the day? At the end of the day, when I hit my head on the pillow and I look through my day, did I do everything I needed to do?
Yeah.
And tomorrow's another day. Start fresh.
It's a lot of integrity that you have in that. And as someone who has worked with you and been around you, I definitely know that you are a person of authenticity. Just why I invited you to be on my podcast here. I was so excited that you said yes to joining me, because I don't want to toot my own horn, but like, real recognize real, you know, and being authentic is really difficult. And before the simple fact that it requires a lot of courage to do that. Everything that you just described honestly sounds terrifying and scary. Like, not in saying it, but in actually embodying it and doing it. It's so scary and terrifying. How do you cope with that?
I talk a lot with my husband and my best friend and even my daughter and a couple of my friends that have become family. I talked about my family. We talk through those things. If I feel uncomfortable during the day and something has happened at work or in life, I'll come home and I just get it all out. You know, they say secrets keep you sick, or when you share with somebody something that's happening, it cuts the feeling in half, so it doesn't feel so heavy.
Wow.
And many times our ego makes us feel like we're the only ones going through this.
Yeah.
But when you share with others and you really listen to others, you're not the only one. You ain't the only motherfucker in this world dealing with these things. But if you're not sharing that with anybody else and you're not listening to anybody else, then you really do think you're just by yourself in this world.
Yeah.
So being able to feel supported by the people that I care about in a way that I feel safe in sharing who I am and what's going on in my head. Therapy, of course, is huge.
very big. You have a lot of community, is what I'm pulling from a lot of your answers, is that you rely heavily on the community around you to help keep you uplifted, to help keep you grounded, help keep you sane, even. I want to talk a little bit about the blog post that you wrote a few years ago in 2022, I believe. And actually, when I look back on the blog post, they published it on my birthday.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so stars be aligning in some ways. I pay attention to certain things that maybe other people don't, but but you wrote this blog post titled Mindfulness, Social Justice, and Returning to My Ancestral Roots. Such a beautiful title, by the way.
Thank you.
And you wrote this for the Shanti Project, which for those listening is a nonprofit that provides evidence-based mindfulness education to over 5,000 children and adults annually across the greater Lehigh Valley. So in your blog post you wrote, and I'm just going to read like a quote from your blog, our ancestors whose mindfulness practices were built into their very nature and culture fostered a sense of community in which each responsible adult was accountable for looking after one another. They worked together to make it possible for everyone to thrive. They grew up learning to cope and to deal with conflict in safe and appropriate ways. And many of us have abandoned these practices when outside influences interrupted our ways of life. And we tried to assimilate into the dominant culture. We were taught to value Western priorities such as time and money, and governmental, political, and financial systems systematically created social injustice, racial disparities, and financial burdens for BIPOC peoples. Gonna put an end quote right there.
I wrote that.
Yeah, you wrote that.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm a genius.
Don't you love when you hear your own words read back to you? Yes, you wrote that.
Whoa.
Building on that reflection, how have you seen these colonial systems distort our relationship to time itself, especially for Black and Brown communities?
I think I look back at my time that I lived in Puerto Rico. My maternal grandparents, my grandmother was like Taina, right? She was very tall, even though I'm short. She was very tall, dark-skinned. My grandfather was very white-looking, like green eyes.
Oh, wow.
She was a stay-at-home mom her whole entire life, never knew how to drive because my grandfather was in the military and it was just that cookie-cutter type of husband-wife situation. On my father's side, that is a darker part of the community. So both of my grandparents on my father's side were like caramel or even darker, right? So I remember my mom taking me to, right, like witchcraft type stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
And we would go to these homes where they would do seances and they would dress in all white. But they were doing things, I never felt like it was wrong or evil. It was more spiritual based. It was, looking back at it now, it was African based, Taino culture, wrapping around with the Black culture and African culture.
Absolutely.
And fast forward to now, I do a lot of saging.
I smelt it when I came in.
I do a lot of saging. I even bought liquid sage so I could sage others at work. So I have been able to continue to tap into that. But for a long time, I had forgotten about it because like my mother kept some of those things like incense in the house all the time and that kind of stuff. But we never really talked about it. I would see it, but we never talked about it. So it kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And throughout my life, I have a 30-year-old daughter. I was a teen mom. My husband is African American. And we lived in a white space. for most of our lives until we came to the Lehigh Valley. So Dan is from like the Erie area, like Sharon, Pennsylvania. And that was very, very, very white. And I'm in Altoona. And then his family moved to the Altoona area. And that's where we met. And then we moved here we moved to State College because we went to Penn State together. Very white. That was a utopia. Wow. And then we moved here to the Lehigh Valley 25 years ago. And that's when I was able to tap back into my roots, because I worked in spaces that was all Latinos. My coworkers were Latinos. The community I served was Latino. My bosses were Latinas. And it was like, wow, I'm back with my people. And so at that point, I didn't feel like I had to continue to live in this world where it was, oh, I have to live white, or I'm talking white, or anything like that was like erasing my heritage. And I think that many times when we have to assimilate into the white culture, we don't even know that it's happening. Until we like become awakened again. So I had to become awakened again to look back. And not that it's all bad, because I'm learning all types of things from all people, even down to finances. Like learning about finances, hearing my white counterparts talking about how they're going to take care of their kids' college and how they're saving or how they're buying a house. I never thought I was going to even own a home until I came across others who were owning homes my age. And I would listen to them and be like, oh, well, how did you do it? So, there's parts of community that's, whether it's your own cultural community or outside community, that you also want to pay attention to, because you do learn things from everybody. From everyone. And there's things that you see and you're like, that's not my lane. But I hear it and I see it, and I'm not going to be I'm not going to be blinded by it when it comes across again. My culture is very important to me. People have always said, like, why Puerto Ricans always have to have your flag in your car, or you have hats with your flag on it, or Boricua all the time. And it's because that's just who we are. We are the most beautiful people on this planet, according to some research out there. Look it up. But our flag was also taken down. We were not allowed to have our own flag in our own island. Wow. You could be arrested. Really? Yes. During I think it was World War I or something like that. We weren't allowed to even have our flags up. Oh, wow. I didn't even know that. And then eventually it was okay. And now it's like, I'm going to show my flag. Well, that makes sense now why so many Puerto Ricans are so proud of that flag, because there was a time in your history where you weren't even allowed to have it out. I wasn't aware of that. But I think a lot of us don't even know that history. It's just like the history that is taught to us in America. A lot of it is whitewashed. You have a chapter on Martin Luther King. You have a chapter on slavery. You have a chapter on this. Everything else is everything else. They're not teaching us about our Puerto Rican heritage in the history books here. They're not teaching us about the Tainos. They're not teaching us about the killing off of indigenous people in this country. It was just the Pilgrims came over and we had Thanksgiving. No. It's not the whole story. It's not how that played out. So you mentioned something that I think is extremely important, and I'm gonna tie this back into what you were just talking about, with specifically to the Allentown area, right? So I'm gonna just read off a little statistic for you. All right. I do racial equity work here in the Lehigh Valley. Part of my job and part of the work that I do is to study statistics, study demographics, specifically the trends in our country. And so America is actually projected to become a majority people of color by 2040. This reflects what many call the global majority, which are people of color in the world.
Here in the Lehigh Valley, that demographic shift is happening even faster, with projections showing we'll reach that milestone by 2028.
Wow.
Yeah. That's over a decade ahead of the rest of the country. And we can already see this transformation reflected in cities like Allentown, which is the third largest metropolitan here in the state of Pennsylvania. And yet, the systems that govern our lives, our schools, our workplaces, the policies, and even our individual pacing of life, it still reflects a Eurocentric worldview rooted in urgency, exploitation, and disconnection. In light of this shift, how might our collective reclamation of time, money, and communal care become part of a larger return to cultural sovereignty?
Ooh,
It's a heavy question.
it's a heavy question, and it's the deep answer to that is political.
Yeah. Yeah.
And financial.
Okay.
Allentown gets a lot of funding from the federal government, from the state, like a lot of school districts. And most of our population in Allentown, like your statistics, is Latino.
Yeah. Yep.
Like 80%.
Yeah.
Almost 80% is Latino.
Yeah.
Our teachers, our staff does not reflect. Even our secretarial staff does not reflect
absolutely
our population.
Yeah, absolutely does not.
I know that the district has worked on, and even Bethlehem, because I used to work in Bethlehem as well. Our districts have really tried to be as welcoming by interpreting, translating documents, sending messages out to the families in their languages. Allentown actually has several languages that are very, very high for us to provide translation and interpreting services for. But when you have systems that don't reflect their community, I always look at the why. Why isn't that reflecting? Where is the stop? Like where is the ceiling that this is happening? And I think that culturally it's fear-based.
Okay.
Where I don't want to lose control. And I will say that this is coming from the perspective of Caucasian, but also the perspective of the African American. But I think it becomes a control issue because you don't want to lose that power.
Yeah.
So you're still going to behave in a way that's still old, that still gravitates to the white systematic way of being, and not really listening to the community, to what your constituents are saying, to what the students are needing. And so it becomes very hard to change things.
Yeah.
You may have a lot of staff that might be brown and black. There's sprinkles of us, and even more so since I've been working there. But we're not at the level where we can make change. The only change we can do is in the classroom or with families that we're working with or anything like that. I think it becomes a struggle with, and even I can say that for myself, like I don't want to lose grip on having control if I go against the bigger picture and the bigger system that's coming down on me.
Yeah. I like that you really pointed something. I don't know if I want to use the term insidious, but that's the term that comes up for me when I think of anything in context of white supremacy culture and how any of us, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, nationality, how we can all perpetuate the systems of white supremacy culture. And that power dynamic is such a huge one. It's such a huge one. I really appreciate you for calling that out because when we hear the term white supremacy culture, automatically our minds just go to this white male person when it can be anybody. It could be me, it could be you. And more often than not, we do perpetuate it without even knowing that we are doing it. Yeah. So I want to tap in a little bit more with your Puerto Rican ancestry, right? How have you consciously reconnected to that ancestral wisdom? What are some like practices? I know that you had mentioned one when you were younger, going back to the island with your mom. Are there any other memories or practices or teachings that have helped you return back to your roots?
Yeah, I am always doing my own research on my own island. I have tons of books in my library just so that I can keep a pulse on where we came from and how can we get back to a place where we don't have to fear being who we are, right? There's a part of the island in Puerto Rico, it's like Piñones and like off of San Juan, and it's all, if you drive through there, it's all like dark skinned Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
I mean charcoal, right? And my father's side of the family, Roberto Clemente is part of our family, right? And a lot of his family lives there, you know, through history. And when I go there with my brothers, we always stop. We always go over there and say hello to everybody. And when you look at it, it's run down. And it reminds me of the ghettos that were built here in the United States, right? Yeah. And it's like, well, why? What is the similarities that I'm looking at here? And it's the color of the skin. Even in our own culture, we have racial disparities. Yeah. We have othering. Yeah. If you're light, you're right.
That colorism.
Yes. Yeah. That permeates. And it's not something that we made up ourselves. Yeah. It's generational.
It's learned.
It's in our DNA. And so I look at that, and even bomba is a type of dance and music that has been around for centuries in Puerto Rico, from the Africans that came over and the Tainos mixing, and we wear these long dresses and like we make these beautiful waves with our hands and the dress, and wear like turban-like type dresses and hats. And when I was little, I was part of the bomba thing for my mom's governmental company that she worked for. And I look at pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at me there. And when I go back, I search for it. And even now, like even in the music, I'm just like, wow, this taking me back. You know, like I said, I do incense, I do saging, I talk to my ancestors, especially in the morning when I'm walking and doing my meditation. I say, please protect me from whatever's going to happen to me. I hope that you're there for me, and I see you and I feel you. I think that ancestors are always watching us. My grandfather came to my dream the other day. I haven't dreamt about my grandfather since I was a kid.
Wow.
And he came to my dream, and I woke up and I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing yourself to me. And it was beautiful. I was like laughing when I woke up. I for some reason, I'm allowing my third eye, if you think about a third eye, like to allow that to come in and teach my daughter about her ancestors. We talk about Puerto Rico. What does that look like? What is that about? She goes and visits, has taken her fiance who's from Africa as well. And they visit the island, and continuously having the presence of my Latino culture, unconsciously speaking my language, being with my people. Even when I'm at work, most of my families are Spanish speaking only. So it grounds me in that, talking to my mom, and she has all types of things. I remember there's this blue chalk ball that she would make crosses on the bottoms of our feet.
Oh.
And when I found out what it was to protect us from any evil. But she would make the crosses. It was like a chalk. She would make the crosses at our feet. We would put our socks on. We go about our day.
Oh.
And I found one of the chalks in one of my things that I searched. I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this. And then I researched it. And I'm like, okay, it wasn't some evil shit. It was to protect me.
It was like a sigil.
Yeah. Even down to like the rosary beads and things like that. Just keeping those things around and present.
Yeah.
I don't have the Puerto Rican flag in my car. Because I'm like, I'm not going to be one of them. But I have the Puerto Rican flag all over my house, though. And in my office.
Yeah.
I want people to know I'm here for you.
Yes, you got to know.
And even in the food. Even in my food. Like Thanksgiving, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving the way America celebrates Thanksgiving. But it's a day off for everybody. So everybody comes to the house. We're the host. And keeping tradition with all the foods that we would eat back home. Food is a huge part of culture.
Yes.
And we are very traditional in that.
Thank you so much, Karim, for sharing space with me, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with me and my audience. I hope that they took something away from the things that you shared, or even were able to relate in a lot of ways to your experiences. I want to also thank those who tuned in to this episode of the Sacred Koi podcast. I hope this conversation offered you space to reflect, unlearn, and root a little deeper into your own lineage and liberation. If Karim's words moved you, please share this episode with someone you love, and be sure to connect with her in the show notes below. I'll have her social media contact information down there. And remember, your freedom is on the other side of fear. Healing isn't about perfection, it's about remembering and staying curious about the world within and around you. So until next time, may you rest, reclaim, and return to what has always been yours. I love you.